Bienvenidos to Freeform Radio on the Freeform Network. I am one of your hosts. My name is Daniel. We'd like to welcome you back to the podcast with my other two hosts today. First off, it is Noel.
What's going on, everybody?
And Andy.
Andy, ready to rock your ears, everyone.
That's right, people. Freeform Radio back at it. Remember, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Freeform Network so you can keep up with us on social medias. But again, this is Freeform Radio. Jump right into the week here, guys. I don't know about you guys, but it was the first thing I noticed a few days ago. My boy Joe Biden over here, man, you know, kind of being old and creepy and feeling on women, Andy. I know it was something we kind of talked about briefly. What are your quick thoughts on this, man? It seems kind of weird to me.
Yeah, it's everybody, when he was a vice president, everybody called him Uncle Joe because he was kind of a weird, I don't want to say character, but he had his little quirks. But one of the things that the joke was always like he would hug women and like kiss them on the forehead or the back of their head and like. But I guess the last couple of weeks, people have come out against him, and they're like, look at this thing, man. He's smelling hair, kissing women, grabbing by the shoulder. And people are now like, this is kind of creepy, you know, in the Me Too era. This is unacceptable. I mean, there's creepy, and then there's like this type of creepy where you're actually touching and like smelling hair. I mean, that's like another level of creepiness, you know, besides just staring at women's like. You know, there's a creepy where you just stare at women and people are like, you're a creep. But now he takes it to another level.
Right. And it's hard in today's society to look at anything in the news because you could make anything and spin it to make it look creepy. You know, I kiss my son on his forehead or kiss him on his head. Not on the lips, but, you know, on the head. And if somebody took a picture of that, they could make it look, I'm assuming, creepy and be like, oh, look at this guy kissing a 9-year-old's head. And then take it out of context. But I know in a lot of the pictures that are circulating of him, these aren't his kids. These are just kids that are visiting the White House for whatever reason, women that are visiting the White House, wives of people that are serving in his cabinet or that are advisors in the Obama cabinet. And dude, it just looks weird, man. And it, you know, I don't know, man. To me, it's just something that just looks out of place. And especially in this new Me Too, you know, era, these are the kind of things that you just can't do anymore, man. And it just looks really, so I don't know if it's that he's just an older guy that grew up with different thoughts that are now becoming more taboo and you can't really do. But it just seems kind of creepy. I don't know what your quick thoughts are, Noel.
Yeah, it definitely looks creepy. There's a lot of pictures out there that make it look like he's doing some unacceptable stuff. But to kind of play devil's advocate here, let's say it didn't look as creepy as it actually does. Let's say it's just him giving a kiss on the forehead or on the head of just people, right? Like various individuals. It's more acceptable for a woman to do that than it is for a man. Is that not the case?
Well, I don't think it's not acceptable because on some of the pictures and even the videos, some of these, there's a couple of women that look uncomfortable.
No, yeah, I'm saying take that aside from it. Like, let's say there wasn't that occurrence. It was just a guy kissing random individuals on the head as like a token of affection, the same as a woman would do to like other people.
Right. So instead of Joe Biden, it's Joanna Biden, and it's a chick doing it.
Right. And maybe not in the creepy sense where he's like smelling the hair and he's like really feeling them up and all that. And it sounds like almost, or it looks like he's almost saying some weird stuff to them. Because there was a couple clips that I saw where it looks like he's starting to say some inappropriate stuff, you know.
You smell pretty.
Something like
that. Right.
Freak
where
out
he's just
anyone.
like, your perfume smells nice. You know, something like that. But man, I don't know, man. I get what you're saying, Noel. To see a woman be more affectionate is more acceptable in our culture. and then rather to see a man. I mean, my mom kissed my head more times than I could say my dad gave me a hug. But that's just the society that we live in, where sometimes the role of a man is to be a little more distant from showing that affection to their child or to children. Maybe because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want people to think bad of them, so they rather not put themselves in that situation, and where it's more acceptable for women. So it's okay for an older lady to come up to your cheeks and, you know, kind of squeeze them really hard and give you a kiss on the forehead, and you would just be, oh, that's just an old lady showing affection to this person. So I get what you're saying.
You just can't do any of that stuff now, man. It's just people today are too sensitive. Even if this was even 20 years ago, people would say something, it's just nothing would be done. And today, everybody's always watching. I mean, all this stuff's on, you know, it's been recorded. The funny thing is, the lady that actually complained about it is she claimed that he did this to her. He did this to her in some Nevada primary, and nobody recorded it. So that's the only thing where the thing that got all this rolling. There was an accusation from somebody that's, I believe, an elected official, and the problem is there's no video of it, but there's plenty of video of other stuff of him describing what she did to him. But there's videos you could see he's doing exactly what she said he did to him.
It makes it plausible. Is that's pretty much what happens? Is once you have all this other evidence that he's done it before or in other situations, then it makes her more believable. And he does look creepy. I'm not even trying to say he doesn't. Definitely looks inappropriate. All I'm trying to say is, to play devil's advocate here, is that is it the same creepiness for a guy to do what a woman could do? You know what I mean?
Right. And to me, what kind of tops it off is this lady from Who's the Boss, which I used to love it as I was a kid, but now, because of Alyssa Milano, it kind of aggravates me just looking at her face and her dumb Me Too.
You get infuriated then when you see sweet Alyssa Milano's face?
I guess it gives me disdain, and it's like, it's just like everything is a huge thing, like the way she makes it seem, and then she makes it seem. I guess what really aggravates me about her is that she wants to be super political, but then again, she's never ran for office, and she's never been in a political position. She is just a movie star who hasn't done anything lately and is just trying to be relevant in today. And that's what aggravates me. If you are really political and you want to make a change and you're really into this Me Too, go into office, get elected, do what you can, do what AOC is trying to do, and do it that way. Like, actually make a change instead of just using your Twitter to kind of pursue your agendas, and all you're doing is getting the tidal wave of all these other, dumb trolls on Twitter, and just ride that wave of her hatred, and that's what aggravates me.
Hatred.
I would hope somebody wants to be like AOC. That stuff freaks me out, man.
No, but I'm just saying that if that's her want, is to actually make a political movement, then I don't believe in what AOC wants to do. But she at least ran for office and is trying to do something in the political ring, not like Alyssa Milano, where she's just trying to do it over Twitter and trying to get people pissed off.
So what you're saying is, don't just talk about it, be about it.
Right, something like that. But I guess to get to what she did about this is that when that judge was being accused of doing inappropriate things at a house party when he was in college, right away she came to all the hearings and was really vocal about how you got to hear women, you got to believe them when they say they've been molested or mistreated or in some way kind of abused. The Me Too thing, where you got to listen to her and you got to give her voice validity, which I agree. But when it comes to Joe Biden, right away she tweets out, "Oh, we got to be mindful that you got to respect the person's space." But at the same time, like he's like that old, nice guy. Just because I think Joe Biden agrees more with some of her political
It didn't.
positions.
It doesn't. Going against Joe Biden will affect her political agenda, and he's been a staunch supporter of the Me Too movement and all these. I mean, he came out hard against like Trump with his issue with the grabbing by the pussy thing, and then he's just like everything. It doesn't fit her political agenda, so she comes out and defend them. Even though I did hear something about this earlier in the day where she was a big proponent of this believe all women. So if a woman comes out and says this, you should just take it like for what it's worth. Like she's coming out and saying this stuff, and but it doesn't believe it doesn't lie in with her political agenda. So now she's like, let's look at let's look at the situation because it's going to impact Joe Biden and her political agenda.
I mean, I found one of the tweets, and it says something to the fact of, I believe that Joe Biden intent has never been to make anyone uncomfortable, and that kind of empathetic leadership is what our country needs, especially now. So disregarding what this lady said, according to when that judge was being accused, which I'm not saying anything pro or against the judge and against that woman that was making those accusations, but I thought your movement was to believe all women and let their voice, be validated, and then unless the evidence shows anything against it. But from, like Noel was mentioning, all these pictures and videos, it kind of validates what this woman is complaining about.
What I'm curious about is, doesn't Joe Biden have anybody like being honest with him and being like, hey man, that's kind of creepy, can you like cut it out? Or doesn't he see these articles or see these like videos, compilations on YouTube? Is he unaware that this is like looked at in a bad light?
I read today that they did make a statement where he says he has to it's not an exact quote, but he has to respect other people's personal space. He says something to that effect, and that he's gonna work on that. So someone did tell him he probably understands this is gonna make an impact if he decides to run for president in 2020, and I'm pretty sure people are now telling him, this is gonna have an impact on your campaign, on the donations, and because it is becoming a bigger issue.
Joe Biden, he kind of reminds me of George Bush and the portrayal they had of him in the movie Vice. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
No, yeah. I got it, but I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I was recommended it. I put it off for a while. I finally watched it, and I was like, it was pretty funny. It's worth a watch for sure.
That's the one where Batman transforms into, who is it, Cheney, or who did he transform into?
Yeah.
The Cheney.
Yep. It was a good one for sure. Good special effects, or I mean makeup, which I guess you would consider special effects, and just a really good portrayal of it.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was really good, and or at least I heard that it's really good advice, and I'm gonna have to check it out for sure. But Noel, let's jump onto your little events over the week. I guess you were watching some UFC.
Of course, man. Anytime UFC is on, I'm watching that. And we actually had a good card this past week. This was from March 30. So when the episode drops, it'll be already kind of dated information. But for anybody who doesn't keep up with the UFC, this will probably interest you if you're interested in like MMA or stuff like that. So the main event was Justin Gaethje versus Edson Barboza. It's a Brazilian versus a Mexican and German mix individual, and it was hyped up for like a month, leading up to this fight, because they are both very good strikers, and they both go for the knockout. And so we already knew going into this is going to be a freaking war. And so I'm just going to kind of cover the main event. It ended in the first round. and it was at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They got a KO victory for Justin Gaethje. So you got to win for the Mexican German.
Mexican German.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like Canelo Alvarez. You know, you wouldn't imagine like this guy's Mexican, but he is.
Yeah.
Or is he a redhead too?
Yeah, the redhead.
Yeah, he's kind of redheaded. Like he's like reddish tint to his hair. Yeah,
All right.
he just looks overly like overly European.
All
Uh,
right.
but but yeah, he has a Mexican mother. It was just an interesting fight though. Just brought it up. It's gonna definitely propel him in the rankings. It'll lead him closer to getting the title shot. And he came from a different organization, World Series of Fighting. So I've been keeping my eye on this fighter for a while. He's won more awards for his fighting performance than he has fights, just to put in perspective.
Damn.
So he's had more bonuses than he has fights. That he's gotten fight of the year multiple times, and he's only been in the UFC for a little over a year. Let me see, actually. Yeah, he's been in the UFC very, very recently, and he only has about 4 fights in the UFC.
Now UFC right now, their contract with ESPN, was it, or Fox, expired, right? Where did you watch this?
So it did expire on Fox. They are on ESPN now, and it was just a multi-million-dollar deal. I think, yeah, multi-million. Not sure if it gets into the billions. I think that's a little too high, but every every fight night, UFC is guaranteed money, whereas before it was they needed to rely on pay-per-view sales and certain things like that. And ESPN is just overall a better experience. I was a little hesitant when they first switched. Fox is pretty good too, but in terms of like the sports coverage they've been getting, the announcing, the articles and the promos and just everything all around quality wise has been really good on ESPN.
So the presentation has taken a bump up as far as it compared to Fox.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely got that boost now. The only drawback that I can see in some people's eyes is that you have to get the app or not necessarily the app. You have to get a subscription, the ESPN Plus, and when you get that, you get access to all the fights that come on. Uh, Obviously, you get ESPN as well if you have cable, and you also get one pay-per-view free of charge, I think, or a discounted pay-per-view when you get this, and it's like about $5 a month or something like that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
read that all UFC, the big, well, what used to be pay-per-views, it's all going through the ESPN Plus, and I they were not going to be available through normal pay-per-view. Is that I heard that somewhere, and then if you subscribe, you get a discounted price on the pay-per-view. Otherwise, if you don't, you can still, the only way to watch it is through the app, and you pay whatever the normal or their pay-per-view fee is.
right. So their incentive to get more subscribers is doing the pay-per-views solely through the ESPN package. So you have to get ESPN Plus, and then you get $5 or something like that off of the pay-per-view. So,
Yes.
it kind of just washes the subscription fee away, is what it's doing. And it's enticing more subscribers, so ESPN gets more ad revenue, I'm sure. The more subscribers you have, the better chance you have of selling ads to companies. So I think that's what's going to happen. A lot of people, there's mixed feelings. Some people think it's going to ruin the atmosphere. So far, so good in my mind. I'm liking the fights they have set up. Of course, there were more good fights, but I don't want to take up too much time. Just want to move on to the next thing that I'm thinking about doing, which is the season's coming for fishing. So I'm
Right,
getting
it's
ready to
starting
get
to get
back out
warm,
there.
right?
Oh hell yeah, man! Today is beautiful. Today was what, like 54 degrees.
Yeah, it was in the upper 50s.
Yeah, and this weekend, which will be the 6th, it looks like it's gonna be 64 degrees. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice, man. Some barbecue weather.
There you go.
There you know.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, I'm gonna go fishing. There's this new spot, Mallard Lake. It should be pretty good to fish there. My cousin scoped it out, and he's kind of the guy that got me into fishing in the first place. So I trust his word. You know, he said it's a good spot for us to try again, not try again, but try for the first time, as well as some other spots we've been to, a couple in St. Charles, and yeah, we'll see how it
What
goes.
what are you going? What do you normally fish for? And don't say carp or something like that. Or you going for catfish, or is there
Uh,
anything?
yeah. So I've caught a couple fish and I've eaten each one. The only one I didn't eat that I did catch was bluegill. You can eat them; they are edible. It's fine. I just didn't have the urge to eat it. Mainly, I fish to keep smallmouth bass or largemouth, but mainly smallmouth is what I've encountered in the places we've gone. And I've caught some big ones, man. A couple like a 3 4 pounder.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that you were going to start dabbling in it. Did you finally get your fishing equipment and your fishing license?
So I got the license ready to go. I have to renew it actually for this year. It expires every year, so you have to kind of renew it. You can get it at Walmart though, like $13, at least
Right.
in Illinois for our non-Illinois viewers. You have to check your local Walmarts to see how much it costs. But in terms of equipment, I'm thinking about going to to get some more like lures and stuff like that, get a little bit more like familiar with the different equipment I can get. But I've just been bumming off my cousin because he has just an abundance of stuff, man.
What does bass taste like? That
Uh,
seems like an interesting fish to eat.
it's it's less of a fishy taste than you'd imagine. It's not like that salty seawater taste. Like it's nothing like tilapia either, which is a more common fish that people eat. Uh, See, I like fish. I like salmon and stuff like that, and I like it to be more like a meaty texture or meaty taste. And I would say this is a balance in between a salmon and a tilapia, where it's not overly fishy, but it's not like any other kind of meat either. It's very, very
Is it
delicate.
thin? Is
Uh,
the meat thinner or?
it depends. Yeah, I mean, it is thin. I fillet it, so
Uh
when I
huh.
fillet it, it's like maybe a little more than a quarter inch, thick. And then,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I've had trout, and trout was it was different. I've never had fish like that. It was very different. It wasn't meaty. It was just like thin and like didn't taste fishy, but didn't look like the when you eat normal like salmon and all that, like that type of fish. It wasn't white, if I remember. It was like darker. It didn't taste like normal fish to me.
That's interesting.
What do you think the fish sandwich from Burger King is made out of? Is that bass?
Nah, that's
Cod,
uh,
isn't it?
I think it's cod. That's that
Oh,
cheap
okay.
fish. They just put
Cheap.
it on some net,
And
and
that fish
then
sandwich is 2 for $6, man. That ain't cheap.
you gotta double it up. It used to be bigger, man. I wish they could give fish steroids.
Right.
Yeah, man. If I catch some, I'll cook some up for you guys. We'll grill it out and we'll do it right.
I thought Andy's rule is that fish will never touch its grill.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
and I say they're not touching my grill. They touch my oven.
Well, I could put it in tinfoil. Still won't be touching the grill then.
Nah, man, that's not cool, man. Only some ribeyes and some arrachera be touching my grill.
Hell yeah, man. But now, yeah, I know my parents, they love grilling out some fish. They'll put some catfish in there and just grill it out, slow cook it for, an hour or so. And man, they taste great.
It does taste good, but I'm not a big fan of catfish because it's like a very, very bony fish. And when I fillet the smallmouth bass, the reason I like that is because you can fillet it on the sides, and you're not going to really get all these bones. You could just eat it and not have to worry about swallowing anything and having it poke your freaking intestines and shit.
Right. I mean, that might be true. I guess it's catfish just because whatever my uncle brings my dad, because my dad's not that big of a fisherman, whatever he brings him, that he just grills that out and cooks it.
Yeah, no, it'll be catfish a lot of times. My uncle, he's big on catfish, like fishing. He will keep some largemouth bass every now and again, but yeah, catfish is you just got to be careful. There's a lot of small bones there, and usually they like to eat it. Like they like to tear open the fish and grab it piece by piece. You know what I
Right.
mean? Whereas I like
Yeah.
to
I'm
fillet it.
I'm always scared that I'm gonna get a bone. So you say your fillets, you didn't get a lot of bones.
Nah, obviously it's gonna be like steaks. You're not gonna get the rib cage or anything like that. You're gonna just scrape along it so that you can get just a nice clean fillet. And it tastes delicious if you season it right. A little bit of oil. Don't overcook it. It gets nice and flaky. In terms of like the meat coming off each other, you obviously take off the actual flakes. You know what I mean? Clean it.
Right.
But yeah, speaking about fish, man, have you seen that movie Blackfish? This documentary, it came out in 2013. It talks about the uh, the captivity of whales and specifically orca whales, and the documentary speaks about this one called Tilikum.
Right, right. Yeah, this week we decided to do something different instead of reading articles and kind of digesting them and speaking on it. We did a documentary, Blackfish, like Noel mentioned. How did you guys feel the difference between doing an article and watching this documentary instead?
I feel the article makes me feel more like an intellectual. I get to read something in the documentary. It depends. Certain documentaries are just like I guess the document depends what kind of documentary it is. You got to be kind of interested in the subject that you're going to see about. But this one is pretty good. It's I mean, I liked it overall. I think it's a pretty good documentary.
Yeah, I mean, switching from an article, which it's more textual, like you obviously get to absorb it in a different way versus watching and listening. It's less interactive, I guess you could say, because you're not actively like reading something. But in terms of like the quality of the documentary, I thought it was really great. So it kind of did immerse me in it. Like I was drawn into it the same way I was drawn into certain articles that we've covered in the past. And overall, man, the documentary it's a very sad tales for the people and for the whales.
Yeah, I know, Andy. You're a pretty good documentary buff, and you like to watch a good documentary every now and then, and so do I if it's something interesting. And not having ever seen this Blackfish documentary, it was my first time watching it just recently for this podcast. It was very well put together. I thought it showed very good production. My only knock that I have for it is that it's very much one-sided. And not that I was expecting SeaWorld to come on this documentary and really give their side of the view, but I thought they were going to find more on the opposite side of the spectrum, kind of like the left versus the right, and kind of have the other side just to kind of counter talk it or kind of, defend SeaWorld or Sealand or whatever it's called to some nature or to some extent. The only thing that they had was there was a gentleman at the very end that said that when this one trainer got pulled in, they were blaming it on the ponytail. So he kept defending that stance, and he's just like, "No, I saw the video. It was her ponytail, and it was her error that caused the accident." So that was about the only counter conversation that was to this documentary. Otherwise, it was really, in my estimate, is that it was really one-sided.
Yeah, there was a point where that guy he said, "Oh, this isn't a common thing or whatever. This isn't all whales." And then they brought up this park where it happened in Spain, and a similar event happened in Spain where this guy got like just manhandled and mauled and mutilated. And in the witnesses, or not the witnesses, but I guess the family of the man that was killed, they do a testimony about how they received the call and what transpired, and just how they visited him in the hospital, and his body was covered from toe up to his neck, and all you could see was his face and his head, and the rest of his body was covered because it was that badly damaged.
Right, right. And just to give everybody a quick synopsis of what this documentary is, it really concerns one of the orca whales in particular. I think it's Telikmu, or what the hell? Tilikum. Yeah, right. Tilikum.
Just call him Tilly. That's what they call him in the movie.
Right, Tilly. the orca, and the involvement of 3 individual deaths. And then it starts all the way from the capture of the orca in 1983 off the coast of Iceland, and then just its life throughout its lifespan. Starting off at Sealand off the Pacific, and then the closure of that park, and then it went to SeaWorld, or they sold it to SeaWorld, where it is currently still living, and so far the daddy of like so many whales there, and the documentary goes into detail as that as well. But yeah, it's basically a documentary on Tilly himself and his involvement with these accidents, and then kind of just brings to light maybe the misrepresentation that SeaWorld gives as far as the environment that they're in, and how a lot of their habits are natural, and how they're beneficiary to be in this environment at SeaWorld versus being out in nature. So it just kind of goes into that and goes into some big detail. But as you can tell, it goes into kind of freeing the whales, kind of that Michael Jackson, save the world, save the whales kind of vibe.
The hippies.
Right.
Just going real back, I took some extensive notes here. So right off the bat, early on in the movie, so everybody thinks, oh, one of the things that caught my eye was, oh, I'm a trainer at SeaWorld, so I'm assuming you have to get some type of bachelor in or a veterinarian stuff. And you find out early on, which is kind of shocking, you don't need any type of degree,
right,
to be a trainer with these, killer whales. And to me, I'm just like, oh, shit, man, I should go apply there. I think one of the former trainers said that, basically they asked me, hey, you look pretty fit. You know how to swim real good? Yeah, I'm a pretty good swimmer. And next thing you know, they're working with whales. And to me, that was kind of shocking. So to me, right off the bat, I don't want to say they're shitting on SeaWorld, but to me, it tells you they're not putting an emphasis on any real type of professional, like veterinarian or marine biologist. It's just jump in there and do all this stuff and blow this whistle. What I wanted to see is how did they get to that point where they're talking about, they don't call it acts or a trick, they call it behaviors. And they kept using these words like bridge, you blow a whistle. How do they get to that point where they train the whale to do that? They hear a whistle, they come. They do good, they feed them. If they don't, that's what I wanted to know more about the nuts and bolts of it, because to me, I think you could kind of see why the whale, I mean, yeah, you're in a big fucking bathtub. The whales will be pissed off because later on in the movie, they're talking about how orcas are emotional animals, and they're very social, which another thing that caught my, kind of perked my ears up. I'm like, what? I think one of the guys says they have emotional lives, and they're very social. So when they're with their pods, and I'm just like, well, they're trying to build them up as they're kind of like human-like, but
they do have a part of the brain, a limbic system. I think they said that it's just more formed than a human does, so they're more emotionally connected.
To me, when he was saying all that, I get that it's just they're social justice fucking fish or something here. They're on their own little ecosystem. But yeah, I mean, it's to me, like I said, they can put a lot of emotion into these animals have feelings and all this other stuff. So they're trying to, when Danny talks about one-sided, there's a bias towards you showing that the animal is more than an animal. This thing has feelings. Yes, it's sad when they separate the orcas or the calves from the moms, and you see them just around there and not being able to do or save them. I mean, that's kind of fucking sad. It does show you they're a little more conscious, I guess. of family, but
I mean, their reaction is more than enough evidence. Literally, the second that the offspring is taken away from the mother starts going ape shit. She starts crying and like whining, and it's very evident. Like, hey, it's bothering her. You know, like this is not normal behavior. She doesn't do this regularly. It happened the second you took her offspring away from her.
Right. And I first of all, I kind of misspoke as far as Tilly. I guess he passed away back in January of 2017. So right now Tilly has passed away. But back to the one-sided. Even though I felt that it was one-sided, I came into this film thinking that whales are very evolved and do have that family structure. At least that's the perceived notion that I had before this documentary. And this documentary kind of goes into that, like Andy was alluding to, that they do have a family structure. And, you know, like Noel said, you know, when they separated that calf, I felt for that whale, man, because it started crying. And I don't know if they were pumping in, you know, noises to make it sound overly dramatic, you know, kind of like the Sarah McLachlan with those dogs, and, you know, making them look all sad, like, you know, they're about to die if you don't donate $1.
No, in the movie, Tilly was getting fucked up for no matter what. In SeaWorld or Sea Land or whatever the hell, all the whales, the females just kept beat the shit out of them.
Right. They kept showing how they were giving them scratches, and they were, maybe Tilly never really stayed out in the real world too long, so didn't get those defensive mechanisms that the mother would probably teach, and maybe those males were males that were out, or the females were females that were out in nature a little longer and maybe had those defective mechanisms. So Tilly didn't know what to do except cower inside his cell or, you know, kind of run away. And then they kind of made it a point, too, that there was such a small area, no matter how big they make it sound, this pool area, there's just not enough room. I mean, whales have the ocean to swim, and now you're confining them to what would be, in essence, to me, be like a splash pool for you know, Junior. You know, it's like that, where you're so huge, it's just like there's not enough room for you to maneuver.
There's even less at night when everybody closes down for the night and they're left at night just to go to sleep. They're in a very small, I think 20 by 30 space.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like they kept playing up the emotional, and like one of the other things they had, I forget, that lady saying that, you know, you can't just put this type of whale and this whale from here and there. It's like they're different cultures, right? They have different dialects. They have different languages.
Yeah, you're putting Mexicans next to like Italians,
so
and it's like they don't speak the same language.
The first thing that popped in my head is like, damn, they're like in prison and they got some fucking gangs, because she was saying how some of them, there was like cliques or something, and a couple of them would mess up Tilly, and they would have to separate them, and like they would just
Bloods versus Crips.
Yeah,
man.
dude. I'm like, damn, man. He's like, there's some gang shit going on at night there. They're shanking each other for like a fucking spot in that tank. But like I said, they just keep hyping it up. They're like, they're almost as humans, and like, you know, they have different cultures and they have different dialects. And to me, that was just like, man, they're really playing up like this human factor with these whales.
Well, not only human factors, but just nature, man. Animals are very territorial, man. Even like a domesticated dog, it'll piss in the yard and mark it, and if another dog comes, it gets upset that you're inside of its territory. So animals in general, not only just humans, but animals are very territorial.
Well, what I thought was interesting too is they said the lifespan of an average female whale is up to 100 years, maybe more, and a male whale is like 50 to 60 years. But in captivity, that's like halved.
Right.
So it's like 50% of their life. However, SeaWorld would actually say that they live longer in captivity than the wild. So they were blatantly lying to the people.
Right. I was just looking at some quick stats on Tilly. It looks like he fathered 21 calves, which 10 of them are still alive.
That's a lot of hand jobs.
That's a lot, man. That was the kind of awkward part of the documentary, that they kind of showed how he breeds, because I guess they would bring female whales to him, but he wouldn't want to, or maybe he did like once or twice, but then after that he was just like, nah, I can't do this. So they would have to remove, his stuff to kind of go inseminate these women and make new babies.
Think about it, Dan. I was telling Noel, like, how do you train that whale to come out of the water, lay on his side, and I gotta be blunt here, just put your dick out, and then they start jerking you off? Like, what training method is that? Because there's one scene where he jumps up and lays down, and he just his fucking dick just fucking came out, and I'm like, what did they do to him to make that happen? Or what kind of training method is that? Because to me, I was like fucking shocked when they were doing that.
I was looking at some of the training, not the jerking off part, but the training in general that they do for the whales. And it's very similar to domesticated dogs. You use a treat system where the animal represents food as doing good. And when you don't get fed, then you're not doing good. And I think even the documentary kind of alludes to that. And that's the way they train them. They get them to try to do an action. And if you don't do it correctly, or you don't do what they want you to do, then they discipline you and they don't feed you. So, any animal wants to eat, especially a dog, man. My dog will eat all day if you let him, probably stomach exploding before anything, because she doesn't know any better. She just eat. So anytime I want her to do anything, I just got to pretend that I'm giving her some food, and man, she'll sit, jump, lay down, flip over, whatever she's got to do to get her treat. And it's the same thing for a whale. You just got to put that action or that whistle command or whatever, that hand gesture, and then the whale knows, oh, okay, I'm going to get a treat. I'm going to get a treat if I do this action and lay on my back and let some, chick jerk me off.
I saw guys jerking them off too, man.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want to be sexist.
Judge.
Right,
I don't judge. So to me, like, I think about like, the bigger picture. Like, as human beings, we train this huge animal to do these tricks, and to me, like, I'm astonished, by just giving them fucking old fish of what humans are able to do, train these animals to do, to a point where you come up and they do that to him. And I'm just like, where's this book to train any type of animal to do this shit,
I think it's trial and error, man. Like any kind of animal that's like artificially inseminated, you have to like figure out just different things. That's what animal trainers do. They dedicate their whole lives to learning about animals and their behaviors. It's how like some people can interact with like bears and be all right. Some people can interact with a lion and be okay. Elephants, like there's just certain people who have that affinity. Like they want to learn about animals and like get down to the root cause of their behavior. And so I'm sure it was just some guy who was like, oh, let me get interested in whales, and he just didn't have anything better to do. Maybe Pornhub wasn't around back then, so he wasn't preoccupied with it.
Well, again, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, right off the bat, these people don't need degrees, so somebody had to come in there and show them this is how we're gonna do it. That's the guy I wouldn't mind seeing where they bring him in, because to get humans to jump in with a whale to do these tricks, I wouldn't do it. I don't care how much they pay you. I would never fucking do that, because when it comes down to it, they're animals. Now, even when I went to Hawaii, I swam with sharks, and I literally, even though I was in a cage, I was kind of freaking out, because they're a fucking animal, and if they want to come at me at this cage, I think they could fuck it up. But I did it in there for like 5 minutes, and I had enough, and I got out,
You were scared, Andy?
Yeah, I was fucking scared, dude. Because these fucking sharks, they come up to the cage, they turn around, they swim underneath the cage, and I'm just at one moment I was like, "What the fuck am I doing out here, man? This thing could come up here and just start banging it, and like who knows what the fuck's gonna happen?" And like I had enough, man. And at the end, I was like, I don't know why I did that. And like these people are jumping in with this fucking whale that they supposedly trained, but still had issues that attacked other people. To me, it's fucking crazy.
I think you get a sense of security from SeaWorld because the people are like, yeah, just jump in and then do this and do that. And you kind of take it as they're the experts of this and that they know what they're doing.
Well, yeah, again, the trainers, one of the other things SeaWorld pushes is the trainers build relationships with these whales. If they have a relationship with the whale, then why the fuck are they dragging them 20 feet underwater and all this stuff? You know, because at the end, they're animals.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how after all this, finally, the judge finally sided in the favor of OSHA, which OSHA made a lawsuit against SeaWorld in regards to the safety of the trainers. And so because of that, the judge the judge decreed that any trainer would no longer be allowed in the water with the whales. Now they have to stand behind this barrier. That happened in 2012, 1 year prior to the documentary being released.
Yeah,
right.
The documentary talks about how SeaWorld is appealing that. I didn't follow up afterwards to see if they won the appeal or they still have the barriers.
Yeah, and this mostly came because of the 3 deaths, like I mentioned. The first one, Kately Bryan, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Daniel Dukes, and then Dawn Branchews.
Yeah, that's the female with they pulled the hair out. She left there. She didn't have it in a bun.
Right. Yeah, that they apparently grabbed her ponytail supposedly, and pulled her in.
Yeah, even in the ones in what they call it,
Sealand in Canada.
The one in Africa, Loro Parque, which translates to Parrot Park. The one, they were kind of crapping on the trainers or people who did the show, and the one guy that the whale attacked, like you said, Noel, he was mutilated. I remember distinctly. I have this on my notes. The whale bit his dick off. So, I mean, do you think, I was thinking like, man, does this whale know where your junk's at? And he instantly went for that, or it was like a fucking free for all, you know?
Yeah, there was also a homeless guy that got his dick bitten off.
Yeah.
And he got like his clothes like ripped off. And I think, yeah, it was the main character, Tillicum, who was parading him around on his back. And
Yeah.
they found him in the morning with this like homeless guy, or not homeless guy, but like weird just guy that snuck in.
Yeah, that was the Daniel Dukes. They when they came into the park in the morning, they found his body on Tilly's back, and Tilly was just going around the pool, just like parading around this body that he had on his back.
Well,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
the guy went in there naked, man, and what Tilly had to do what he had to do, man. Probably try and take his manhood.
I don't know if he was naked because Tilly ripped his clothes off, because they did say that the clothes were shredded in the pool. So to me, even though they didn't really mention it and there's no video footage of this, which to me seems crazy since the whole park's got to be under surveillance, and especially your $1 million whale has to be under surveillance, I would think. So there's got to be video showing this guy jumping into the pool naked or with clothes.
I must have misunderstood. I thought he took his clothes off. I thought they found his clothes off to the side, or maybe I'm getting it confused with another story. I remember saying, I remember they found him naked because he jumped in naked. I don't know if he shredded it off. I thought they found his clothes on the side.
I think that's the story that they wanted to give.
SeaWorld said, yeah.
Oh, SeaWorld said that.
Okay. They didn't want it. They I think they said he took his clothes off, he took a dip in the pool, and he drowned. That's like how they made it seem like it was a cover up, pretty much. They made it seem like
allegedly.
Nah, for sure, man. Like there's no way you come out of this thinking that SeaWorld's legit and that they're on the up and up. There was so many cases, and like when they put it to trial and they show the documentary of the lawyers blatantly lying, like there's no affiliation with the park that got the other the Spanish person killed. That there was no affiliation with whales being aggressive. Like there was just so many lies, and I'm just like, man, I can't believe that they're still allowed to be in business. I thought that would have like bankrupted them or sunk them, but I guess they're just that rich, you know, that they can keep affording these lawsuits and keep affording to just keep the slavery going. That's
Right.
essentially what it is. It's whale slavery. That's the takeaway I got from this. What do you guys think? Do you guys think it's okay to have whales in captivity like that?
Well, back to my first point, or one of my points was, do you believe that because of the way the documentary portrays it, or did you believe this before even this documentary? Because with the documentary being really one-sided, of course it's going to make you at the end feel like, hey man, let's free all the whales, you know, this is inhumane, which might be true to begin with. I'm not saying that it's not, but that's definitely the perception that this documentary gives you, and it doesn't really just spit out facts and then go, hey, what do you think? You know, it just really hounds the point that whales are being unfairly put in captivity.
Well, if you were to ask me, man, I don't just apply this to whales. I'm against zoos. I'm against like all these types of things where you have any kind of animal in captivity. I just don't think that's the right way to be as a person. If we're so intelligent, why are we holding these animals like hostage and forcing them to do things? They're perfectly fine in the wild. Just let them be. If you want to admire them, then you can send out people to document them like they do, you know, where it doesn't interfere with their environment, where they're out there recording hyenas or whatever the fuck, and it doesn't interfere with what they're doing in nature. And I think, yeah, it just really, to me, it's evil to think that you can hold an animal hostage and keep them under your complete control, where they have no say in the matter. Obviously, they can't, right? So that's like it's akin to somebody that's mentally challenged. They can't speak for themselves, and you just make them do tricks like in a circus. And it's like, oh well, they can't tell you they don't like it, but hey, you're the one that's stronger, right? So who's to say who's gonna stop you, right?
Well, what about a domesticated animal? My dog can't tell me that he wants to be here, but I have him on a leash and collar and don't let him escape a fence gated yard, you know, so that he doesn't escape out into the neighborhood. Whereas, you know, where is the line drawn where it's okay to keep an animal in captivity?
Well, I mean, a domesticated animal brings about a different situation because if you were to have a domesticated animal and it attacked you, well, it's your fault for having that animal, right? It's not the animal's fault.
Right.
But if the animal attacks
It's
you
the
while
animal's
you
fault, man.
while the animal is in captivity in a zoo, that's a completely different story. You have multiple people, you're benefiting from it, you know? I don't think you benefit from having a domesticated dog or a domesticated cat or having a horse on a ranch. You know, there's certain animals that have through the thousands of years of human civilization have just become a part of our family. And I think that's what separates it. Are they family or are they an attraction that makes you money?
I seen Danny train his dog to bring him a beer, but you don't want to know his training methods.
I mean, I kind of agree with you, Noel. I mean, like I mentioned before I watched this documentary, I kind of felt that way anyways, that we're kind of abusing these animals. But it goes to something I kind of briefly talked to Andy about. It's like how they make our hamburgers. We really don't know the true, or at least I shouldn't say we don't, but the majority of people don't know what the actual process is. All you get is the hamburger at the end that you order at Burger King or McDonald's or anywhere else. You don't really know that whole process. And that if you would watch and see how they abuse some of these animals and how they kill them, you know, just to feed us, it's kind of in the same light where, they trap these animals, elephants, lions, all these animals to entertain us at circuses and whatnot, swimming with the dolphins. Oh yeah, dolphins are really loving animals and they love to be next to you, but let's keep them in captivity so Andy could pay a few bucks to go over there and pet the dolphins while he's swimming in Hawaii. Stuff
Done
like
it.
that.
Been there, done that.
Stuff like that. It's like I get it, but where does it, where do you draw the line? Do we end all of this and not put any animals in captivity?
Well, are you talking about captivity for the purposes of eating and survival, or the purposes of being entertained? Because there's a big difference there. You're forcing an animal to do tricks, and if it doesn't get to eat. Whereas if you left it out in the wild, it would eat based on its own merit if it earned it by killing something. And nature versus just nature, I guess, just the way it is.
Right.
But versus you having it in captivity and forcing it. I don't know. I think in my mind, you shouldn't have anything captive for the entertainment purpose of it. It should be for the purposes of your survival. Like hypothetically speaking, if we're talking about certain animals being in captivity, like, cows and pigs and chickens, things that produce protein for people that can eat it and consume it, I think there's better ways to handle that. That I agree with you on that. Like it's inhumane the way they do it. And I'm against those kind of things. That's why I'm better about range-free kind of chickens or like a grass-fed cows, things like that. There's different ways you can go about it. You don't have to put up with that kind of stuff. And that's why I prefer to fish versus going and buying a fish that was like brought up with hormones and shit like that, pumped full of garbage that I don't want. I'd rather go and fish in a clean pond and, get something that I caught and I eat it. It's for my survival and for my nourishment.
So yeah, going back to what you said, Noel, about the zoos and all that, I'm all hardly for zoos, SeaWorld, fucking the circus with the elephants. I went to actually the Ringling Brothers and Bailey Circus the last year when they had the elephants, and I've paid for great seats. That's the closest I've ever been to a freaking elephant. Without, I've never even touched one. But where the hell else am I gonna able to see a real life elephant in the city of Chicago up that close besides the zoos? To me, you put the zoos and all that, the shows, the dolphins. To me, I think we need those things to admire the animals more. Obviously, you can't abuse them. But there is a way to train them. Like Danny said, we all want the hamburger. We don't want to see how it's made. And to me, in a society that we are today, we need those things, because I'm not going to be able to go to Africa or anything else to see these type of animals. They're in my backyard. They're going to be a zoo. And to me, for admire that animal up close, that's the only option I'm going to have. Yes, are animals abused? Absolutely. But the bigger... it goes down to me. When I have kids, I want them to see those animals, and I want to see them up as close as possible without them physically getting hurt. So even like the safaris that they have, I don't know if it's in Africa or where you drive the cars through this thing. I would do that. Even though those animals ain't technically wild because they're in an enclosed area, I would do that. To me, I would admire more that animal. And going back to the domesticating the cats, and same thing. If you on a farm, when you put an animal to work, like a horse or a donkey or a mule, does that donkey or mule have a choice if you're plowing that field? I'm pretty sure no, you don't, but it's a necessity, especially when you live in those type of rural areas or in the third world countries. And to me, I don't see no problem putting farm animals to work or producing whatever we need to survive. obviously there's a limit. If you treat animals bad, there's something fucking wrong with you. If you beat them for pleasure or beat the shit out of them, but it is, that's obviously wrong. And I think we're more civilized now than we were back even 100 years ago, where they used to just beat the shit out of them. I mean, there's other ways. There's other ways to do things now. We do things smarter, I hope.
Right. I do think that this is definitely a very polarizing concept about animals and captivity and all that stuff, putting them to work. But maybe like you said, Andy, when you're in some of these worlds that you don't have the luxury of having a big machine do the plowing for you, and you got to have a bull pull that plow for you, it might be seen as inhumane, but that's the only way you can really feed yourself and create the harvest that you need to feed your family and feed the town or whatever the circumstance may be.
I think it all depends, like sheep and a shepherd, like the sheep depend on the shepherd and the shepherd depends on the sheep. So it's like a mutual beneficial arrangement. So if you're mutually benefiting, then that's one thing. But when you're talking about taking a whale out of its habitat and putting it in a small pool, or taking like dolphins or any kind of those things, it's a big difference. I see where you guys are coming from on that. And obviously this is much bigger of a discussion. This is a lot deeper than what the documentary, I think, intended, especially starting off with just about whales. This is more about all animals at this point. So we'll have to save that for another time, possibly.
Right. So give us your quick closing thoughts on the documentary.
So from start to finish, I just thought it was really sad. The whole treatment of the animals and how they were taken from a wild habitat into this small and dirty and just really tough atmosphere. It's kind of akin to like Nazis, man, and the way I looked at it. Like I've been watching a lot of no, seriously, they're put to work, and if they don't do it, then they're useless to you, and you just put them down, or you just you punish them, and that's essentially what it is. It's slavery, but for animals. And I also felt sad for the people because they were duped. Some people lost their lives because they weren't informed correctly. A lot of the people that were interviewed were actually former employees, so it made me connect with it more because I was able to believe it. It was almost more like a Glassdoor interview. I don't know if you've ever seen that. They do like ratings on businesses, so it seemed like a little bit of an insight into the business of SeaWorld. And I'll tell you what, they're never getting my money.
Would you recommend the documentary for other people?
Oh yeah, definitely watch it. Blackfish, 2013. It's worth a watch. It's been out for a while. Should be cheap on DVD.
Right. My quick thoughts on it, like Noel said, it was very well put together documentary. My only negative mark is maybe that it's a little one-sided, but maybe there isn't another side to it. Maybe that is the only side. I'm not really sure. It is the only documentary that I've seen as far as whales. And like you said, Noel, it really got my heartstrings going when those whales were being separated from their family and those babies and the mothers crying out for their kids and their kids crying out, trying to get, direction and trying to get, some kind of comfort from their mothers. And it was heartbreaking, man. And it was kind of sad. So that got me going. I recommend it. And if you get a chance, definitely watch it. It's a good documentary.
Yeah. I mean, I would recommend it. Again, it's, we keep saying it's biased, but in the end, they did say we asked SeaWorld to comment or to be part of the movie. They refused. They had their shot of presenting their side of it, but I think they kind of knew it was going to be a tough hill to climb because just the constant, I don't want to say bashing, but it was just it wasn't made out for them to look good, no matter how they spun it. And then the documentary clearly shows they made up, I don't want to say allegedly made up, but they have some facts that are incorrect. And so they knew that it was going to be tough for them to present their side of the story, so they decided not to participate. But I highly recommend it. Watch it. Give us your thoughts on it. before we head out of here, I'm going to ask these questions. I think I already know your answer, Noel. If you have kids or when you have kids, so are you going to take them to SeaWorld or to watch these whales? But I think you already answered that for us.
No, man. I don't want them growing up to think that it's okay to keep them like that.
What about you, Danny? What do you think? You going to take a junior to go to SeaWorld anytime soon?
I think SeaWorld, I looked at their membership price and it was kind of expensive for me. But putting the price
always with the economics with Danny.
Right. Putting the price aside, I don't think so, man. I took Junior when he was young to a circus, and I myself hadn't been to a circus in a long time. My parents were not parents of means, so we really didn't go do things like that. So I wanted to give my son that experience. And after I saw some documentaries and read some articles about elephants, it really gave me a sour taste as far as circuses are concerned. And I don't believe I'll ever go back to one. So no, I got to say, unless it's in a zoo or some type of humane way of presenting the animal, I don't think I would participate in anything like that.
Damn. I guess I'm the odd man out here. I would definitely go to SeaWorld. I've done it. I've been to circuses. Again, it goes to what man can do to these animals. I understand your point where it's inhumane or what you're taking them out of their environment, but what we do with them, making them do these tricks and stuff, these huge animals, down to with the elephants at a circus. I would say down the road, I'm like 99% sure I'm going to take them. My wife already said she wouldn't. And I told her, well, it's just going to be me and the kid, and you just saved me a couple bucks. So, but I probably will end up taking my kids if God bless me with some, will probably end up taking them. So, but with that being said, we want to thank you everybody for listening. This polarizing issue we have here. Remember, you could follow us on the Freeform Network on Facebook and Twitter on the Freeform Network. Send us what you guys think. Are you going to take your kids to SeaWorld? Are you ever going to go to SeaWorld, the circus? Send us what you guys think. Let us know under ffnquestions@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our webpage, freeformnetwork.podbean.com. There you're going to see everything on all the platforms we're on. We're expanding YouTube. Hit like, subscribe. We can't get enough of it. And hopefully one day we'll have more episodes regarding animal rights here, because I guess I'm stuck in the Stone Age. But we want to thank you for listening. We have Daniel.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time. Let us know if you want us to see another documentary.
Noel.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. Take care.
And Andy here. And you heard the guys. Thanks for listening. We'll check you out next time.
That was cool, Dad.